when he got home, he got a knife, cut his concubine into 12 pieces, limb by limb, and sent her body parts into all the areas of Israel. Now, this story that I'm telling you is found in the Bible. You can read it in Judges chapter 19. Now, the story started out by telling us during this period of time that this was happening, there was no king in Israel. Now, most translation will entitle this story as the Levite and his concubine. Now, as I said, you can find it in the book of Judges chapter 19, and I'm going to give you a quick rundown of this very interesting story. Now, the story started out by telling us there was no king in Israel at this time, and there was this man who was a Levite, and he was from Ephraim. I think that's what the Bible says. He was from Ephraim, and he had a wife, a concubine, and the Bible says that she played the harlot and she went back to her father's house. Now, after 4 months of her not returning, the man went and he said, you know what, I'm going to go get my wife, my concubine. And so he went to her father's house. And when he got there, his dad-in-law was happy to see him, and he welcomed him. And he said, listen, come, stay, eat, drink, refresh yourself. And, the dad persuaded him, his concubine's dad persuaded him to stay there for 3 days. He was there for 3 days. And on the 4th day, he got up. He had 2 horses with him and his servant, and that were saddled, 2 horses that were saddled because he planned on taking back his wife, and he had his servant with him. And so on the 4th day, he got up and he's like, you know what? I'm going to go now. And his concubine's dad said, no, refresh yourself, eat and drink, stay a little bit longer. And so he stayed. And in the afternoon, when he was ready, his dad-in-law was like, listen, it's pretty late right now, just stay another day. And so he persuaded him to stay again. So he's now there for 4 days. Now on the 5th day, he woke up and he's like, I'm gonna go. And his same thing happened. His concubine's father said, no, stay and refresh yourself. And he stayed a little bit, and he ate and he drank and he refreshed himself. And as evening drew nigh, he's like, I gotta go. And his father-in-law was like, no, stay, you can go in the morning. He's like, no, I've been here for 5 days now. This is gonna be 5 days. I gotta go. And so he saddled his horse, he took his concubine and his servant, and they left. And they were headed for, he was going back to his home. And so as they were heading home, remember now, he left late, so night was coming. It was getting dark. And his servant said to him, listen, we need to turn into Jebus, which was actually Jerusalem at the time. He's like, we're not gonna make it home, and it's getting dark, so let us turn into one of these cities. He's like, no, we're not staying anywhere where the Israelites aren't, so we're gonna travel on to Gibeah. I think that's where he was headed. And he was like, we're gonna just keep on going until we get to Ramah or Gibeah, but we're not gonna be staying anywhere where the Israelites aren't. We are Israelites, and we're just staying with our people. And so he went and he got into the city. And when he got there, my friends, when he got there, he was in the square. He was in the city square waiting for somebody to invite him in, because that's how it was in those days. And so nobody invited him. Nobody was hospitable towards them until later on in the evening, an elderly man who was also from Ephraim saw him in the city square and was like, what are you doing out in the city square? And he was like, well, we're traveling. And he kind of relayed the story to him. And nobody took us in. And he's like, I really have food. We have everything that we need. We just need a place to stay, but we can refresh ourselves, because I have food for my animal, I have food for us, and I have everything that I need. And the elderly man was like, oh no, I can supply your needs. You can come and stay with us. You cannot be in this city square. And so the elderly man took him in, and they were eating and drinking, and he was enjoying himself. They were relaxing and refreshing themselves. Listen, just like in the days of Sodom and Gomorrah, the vile men, the Bible says, of the city came and surrounded the house. They knew he was there, and they were not there for his concubine. They were there for him. And they started pounding at the door, as they did with Lot. The very same thing. They started pounding at the door, and they were like, listen, we need that gentleman that is in there. We need him, because we want to do stuff to him. And the man was inside. And similarly, as it was in Lot's case, the man was like, listen, don't do this evil. Like, this is my guest. Don't do this evil thing. I have a virgin daughter. I can send my virgin daughter out. And there's this concubine here. His concubine is here. We can send them out to you, but please, please, please do not do this vile and evil thing. The man were like, listen, we said what we said. Anyway, the man ended up sending out his concubine outside to the men of the city. The Bible says that the men of the city all night long, they did what they did to her. And when it was daybreak, she finally found the house where her husband was staying. And she was in such a bad situation that she fell down at the front doorway with her hand on the door. She was in a bad situation. All night, the men of the city, they abused her. And so when the man, the Levite man, opened the door in the morning to be on his way, he looked outside and he saw his concubine. She was just laying right there at the front with her hand on the threshold, the Bible said. And he's like, get up, let's go. We gotta go, get up. She was dead. She was dead. He took her up, put her on his horse or his ass or his donkey or whatever it was he was riding. He put her on his ass and he took her home. He limbed her into 12 pieces, limb by limb, and he sent her body parts to all the areas of Israel. He was really upset about it. And when they got the body parts and they got the message, they were like, oh my gosh, we have never seen anything. When they heard the story of what happened, because he outlaid, when he sent the body parts, he let them know what time it was, what was happening. He just relayed the whole thing. When the people of Israel, they got the body part and they knew what happened, they were like, we have never seen anything like this. Never, ever, ever, never, not since we came out of Egypt. We have never had anything like this. And they were like, we're going to have to do something about it. True Bible story. You can read it in the book of Judges, chapter 19.